Hiss! A sensation of pain came to Lambert, who opened his eyes with difficulty to see a dose of syringe being stuck in his arm. As the handle of the syringe was slowly pushed in, the green liquid inside the syringe disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Monica, the Vajra-2 reagent has been injected. This is the last clinical trial. Please record the various feedback data. A man clad in a white coat pulled out the syringe and instructed the girl beside him. Okay, Dr. Z. The girl named Monica answered, her voice clear and cold. Lambert's head was a little confused. God damn Donkey Kong 2. What the hell is Monica? Is he playing a game obsessed? He clearly remembers that he was playing an inverse world game before, and then fainted in a moment of excitement. Now he even heard the names of the characters and drugs inside the game. Was he dreaming? But the pain in his hand immediately made Lambert awake. The real touch. This was definitely not a dream. Could it be that he had traveled across the world, and to the inverse world? Lambert realized that he was lying on an experimental bed, surrounded by experimental instruments that he couldn't understand. He guessed that this should be a place similar to a laboratory. This couldn't be Dr. Z's biochemical research lab in the inverse world, right? Thinking of this, Lambert immediately became anxious. This was because he suddenly remembered what Dr. Z had just said, that he had been injected with the Vajra-2 agent. According to Lambert's understanding of the inverse world, he would turn into a zombie next. In the end, he should not be able to escape the fate of being purged by the Human Alliance. Lambert's eyes stared dead at the busy figure of the man clad in a white lab coat, none other than Dr. Z, the originator of this incident. In the year 2112 of the inverse world, scientists discovered a green mysterious liquid in an ancient tomb. Based on the study of the inscriptions and mythological records in the ancient tomb, it seems that the people at that time believed that it was the blood left behind by the Creator. Through active cultivation experiments, scientists were surprised to find that the elements contained in the liquid can make cell activity break through the limit in a short time, so that living organisms can obtain extremely strong physical quality and nearly unlimited metabolic capacity. This discovery seems to bring infinite possibilities to the future of human life sciences, and has caused a huge sensation around the world, and the mysterious liquid is also known as the water of life. Dr. Z has been devoted to the in-depth study of the water of life. He is a young and talented scientist with a double degree in neurobiology and philosophy from the Imperial College of Science and Technology. What he didn't know was that the water of life was a Pandora's box, which ultimately pulled him, and even the whole world, into an abyss from which it was difficult to extricate itself. The drug that Lambert was injected with this time was a genetic drug called King Kong No. 2, which was developed by Dr. Z using the water of life as the trigger and the hormone extracted from the gorilla's body. Lambert knew that even if the drug was successfully developed, it would still have great side effects, not to mention that it was still in the experimental stage. At this moment, it is very urgent, because before crossing over, he had personally seen Dr. Z's delirious state after injecting Vajra-1. While obtaining a strong power, his body had long since lost its human form. Insane. Where was there any human appearance? Once he thought of this, Lambert's body couldn't stop trembling slightly. Monica, who was observing the feedback data on the experimental instrument, did not pay attention to the agitation in Lambert's heart and the strange movements of his body. Monica was an expert in genetics at the Imperial Biochemical Research Institute, as well as an advisor to Dr. Z. She possessed the appearance of a goddess, but didn't have the attentiveness of a nurse. Lambert only felt the blood in his body rushing towards his head at a rapid pace, and pain like ants biting came from his bones and muscles. It hurt and itched so much that he couldn't even faint. Lambert's struggling movements became more and more violent. But the fixing device on the experimental bed made his swinging very limited. The data on the experimental apparatus jumped rapidly, as if it was going to burn the apparatus out. Monica, Experiment 6 has been injected with Emerald 2. Please wait and record the feedback data as well. Dr. Z's voice came from next door, appearing bland to the extreme, like a machine with no emotion. Monica's reply was also rather formulaic. Okay, Dr. Z. After saying that, the movement of recording in her hand accelerated by a few points, and then she quickly walked towards the next door. Lambert turned his head with difficulty and glanced around, realizing that he wasn't the only experiment in this lab. As far as the eye could see, there were experiments lying on a full dozen lab beds. While Lambert was experiment number 1, that experiment number 6 was injected with a different drug than him. From this, it seems that this laboratory is not small. Not only is the number of experimental subjects relatively large, but also more than one type of drug is being tested. Obviously, Vajra No. 2 was an upgraded version of Vajra No. 1, while Emerald No. 2 was an upgraded version of Emerald No. 1. The pain in his body was getting stronger and stronger, like a fire was burning from the inside out, or like some kind of mysterious force was tearing the bones and muscles. Lambert's sanity was getting blurred. He was a bit unwilling. He had just crossed over and was going to turn into a zombie. What about the said necessary golden finger for travelers? Where are you, System Father? Come out. It seems to have heard the desperate cries of Lambert's heart. At the critical moment, an electronic voice suddenly rang in his mind. Congratulations to the host. The system activation was successful. Is it possible to extract the Vajra 2 potion? Extract. It was too late to study the system functions, and after the system issued such an inquiry, Lambert chose to accept it at the first opportunity. Because the medicinal properties of King Kong No. 2 were too strong, and with such a violent medicinal power, I'm afraid it was still related to the existence of side effects. King Kong No. 2 extraction is successful. Gene optimization has been completed. Almost within a few breaths, the system's prompt came again. The pain faded away like a tidal wave, and Lambert only felt indescribably relieved all over his body. The originally bulging blood vessels began to recover at this moment, and the blood that was speeding through the veins also leveled off. But clear thinking and a strong heartbeat let Lambert know that he was completely different from before. He even had the illusion that he could kill an elephant with one punch at this moment. Was this the result of genetic optimization? King Kong 2 was really something. Of course, the endless extraction system was an even better thing. If it wasn't for the fact that he had activated the system in time, I'm afraid that he would have turned into a zombie at this moment. Click. The sound of instruments breaking resounded within the lab. Lambert slightly exerted his strength and casually broke the fixing device on his body. He slowly got up, his eyes looking towards the surrounding test beds. All that met his eyes were experiments that were constantly struggling, and some had even begun to transform towards zombies. The clothes on those zombies were broken by their powerful bodies. The original agonized faces began to become hideous and gruesome. Long and thin fangs grew out at a visible speed, and even the nails on their hands grew out in just a short period of time. Warning, 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 the control system has suffered an invasion by a foreign enemy. Suddenly, the alarm bells of the entire laboratory rang loudly as the monitoring system sent out a message of enemy intrusion. Discovered? Lambert was shocked in his heart, but then he put his heart down. It was because after Dr. Z and Monica exchanged a glance, the two of them left this lab in a hurry. There were a large number of roars and wails in the lab, and these unusual situations made Dr. Z and Monica, the two of them, not the first to discover that Lambert had broken free from the fixtures at this moment. After observing for a while, seeing that there were no more other staff members in the experiment, Lambert quickly got up, ready to look for an opportunity to leave. Meanwhile, after the monitoring system issued an alarm, some of the control systems in the other labs were quickly breached remotely. A large number of zombies poured out from the lab, and for a while the entire lab was thrown into great chaos. Damn it, it's that bastard who's behind this. If I know about it, I'll definitely capture him to use as an experiment. Dr. Z cursed while yelling at the security personnel over the intercom. Security personnel, hurry up and cut off the networking with the outside world and quickly restore the quality control system. Dr. Z's mouth was not stopping and his hands were not idle as he began to instruct Monica to join him and prepare for a tactical evacuation of the place after copying the important information from the computer. Lambert had just stepped out of that lab when he heard the roar from behind him getting closer and closer to him. He turned around to see that all those experiments that had become zombies had actually broken free and were coming towards his side. From these roars, Lambert vaguely heard some familiar words. Messing with. Konbini. Must dot. The zombie's mind was no longer clear. Coupled with the leakage of air from its mouth, the message in the roar was somewhat intermittent. Lambert was still able to tell because he was familiar enough with the inverse world. He stopped to watch in case he was suddenly attacked by the zombies. However, his worries were obviously redundant. The zombies just looked at him and left towards the door on their own. It wasn't known whether it was because the zombies saw him as a kindred spirit or whether they sensed the powerful aura on him. Since the other party didn't attack, Lambert didn't bother attacking these zombies. Lambert followed the tide of zombies far behind, ready to fish in troubled waters to escape from here. Along the way, more and more zombies fled, and their roars became louder and louder. The whole laboratory was like a noisy food market. Suddenly, the zombies that were still strolling with some purpose began to become angry and violent. Hordes of zombies rushed in the same direction, and the roars from their mouths began to become gradually unified. Dr. Z. Must dot. Lambert was slightly stunned, then immediately reacted. These zombies had discovered Dr. Z, and had temporarily transferred their original anger towards company to Dr. Z. Lambert originally wanted to break away from the zombie team at this point and leave the lab. But then, it was too conspicuous for him to move alone. It was also unknown if the lab had any security teams and devices. After a little thought, he still decided to feel his way through the zombie tide first and meet up to find another opportunity to leave. Monica, you bitch, how dare you betray me? I won't let you go, Dr. Z's angry voice suddenly came from the front, followed by screams of misery, so he must have been in a bad way. From Dr. Z's words, it is not difficult to hear that he was smothered by Monica. It is really poor an old man, ah? Lambert didn't hear Monica's voice. Maybe she took this opportunity to escape. The price Monica paid was only to betray Dr. Z. It was a good deal. The zombies began to flee the lab like a tidal wave, without attacking anyone else in the lab. Without Dr. Z's command, the security personnel didn't attack the tidal wave of zombies. In the midst of fear and trepidation, the two sides fell into such a peaceful scene. Lambert glanced at the scaly corpse of Dr. Z, a thoughtful look in his eyes. Asterisk. The alarms kept ringing, but the lab's security personnel did not make any countermeasures, not even daring to turn off the alarms. The wave of zombies surged towards the door of the lab, then quickly disappeared into the deep streets and alleys. So far, these new humans turned into zombies looked as if they were a little bit squeamish. Lambert stopped for a while and silently watched them leave, with some clarity in his heart. The reason why the zombies abandoned their intolerance and fear after that and became ferocious, I'm afraid that it really had nothing to do with the humans' extreme coercion. After all, although they became what humans call zombies, they also need to survive. If someone wanted to drive them to extinction, forcing them to not be able to live, it would be reasonable for them to fiercely resist. At this moment, the time had already come to night, and the lights around the laboratory stretched Lambert's figure to a long length. In fact, besides observing the departure of the zombies, he also noticed Monica's figure. After the genetic optimization, Lambert not only became extremely powerful, even his movements became extremely agile. He wouldn't be like those zombies who honestly walked like normal people, but instead jumped forward between various buildings. When he encountered an obstacle, Lambert even destroyed it with a single punch, which was very convenient. At this moment, Lambert had already secretly followed Monica to a place called Inglewood Bar. After confirming that Monica had gone in, he then wandered in and followed her. A waiter was carrying a cocktail on a tray to the table where Monica was. Monica was the only one at the wine table, and she elegantly took a small sip, put down the glass, and then sat there quietly. It was obvious that she seemed to be waiting for someone. Lambert sat down at a table next to Monica as if no one else was there, and ordered a glass of wine at random as well. He was curious as to who Monica had come here to wait for and what she was planning to do. Although he was more familiar with many things in the inverse world, his knowledge of the details was still lacking. Monica was the first acquaintance Lambert had seen when he came to the inverse world, and of course Dr. Z as well, but the latter had already been torn apart by the zombies. So now that he had nothing to do, he had the time to observe Monica as an acquaintance, and in the meantime, learn about the movements of the Compton Company. After all, that biochemical research lab from before, 9 times out of 10, it was the Compton Corporation that was behind it. Since Monica was working for Compton, she should more or less know some of Compton's movements. However, Lambert gradually sensed that something was wrong. Because the person Monica was waiting for did not arrive, and the glass of wine she ordered was about to reach the bottom, Monica began to become a little impatient, but more. Surprisingly, she had a tendency to get a little drowsy. To say it was lack of sleep or drunkenness, Lambert would never believe it. Then there was only one truth. There was something wrong with the wine. Monica wasn't stupid. She guessed it too. Her head was getting drowsy, but she still held her head strong. In a blur, she saw a familiar figure smiling grimly and walking towards her. "Fox, I can't believe it's you." Upon knowing the evil intentions of the visitor, Monica only had time to utter a few words before she could no longer support herself, and her consciousness fell into chaos. But when the man named Fox was planning to enjoy the next wonderful time, a hand like an iron clamp firmly grabbed his shoulder, making him unable to move a bit. Fox turned his head to see a black-haired, black-eyed youth looking at him with a teasing face, and he instantly became furious. "Fark, let go of me, or I'll make you not walk out of this bar." Saying this on his lips, in reality, what he was thinking in his heart was that no matter what, this youth would not be able to leave this bar with all his limbs intact. Lambert's face immediately sank, and without saying a word, he threw a punch and hammered at Fox's face. For a moment, red, white, and green were scattered all over the place. The surrounding bar, which was originally quite noisy, seemed to be pressed the pause button. Many originally drunken drunks were like a pot of cold water poured on them from the head, and their drunkenness immediately sobered up 3 times. Lambert's eyes coldly swept a glance around, then walked to Monica's body, picking her up to leave the bar. At this time, a few bartenders just arrived, ready to stop Lambert and the two of them. They only heard that someone was causing trouble and had not seen Lambert's situation. Lambert didn't even look at them and kicked one under the table. Just walking to the cashier, he casually glanced at the cashier, and the other person immediately pissed himself and even fainted. Walking out of the Inglewood bar, Lambert stopped a cab and informed the other party to go to the nearest hotel. The driver seemed to be used to this kind of thing and did not have any resistance. Originally, he wanted to ask Lambert if he had any requirements for the hotel's environment, but after seeing Lambert's stern eyes, the driver immediately swallowed the words that came to his mouth. Lambert didn't have any money on him, but he found his wallet from Monica's body. On top of that, he also found a flash drive. After drawing a few from the wallet, Lambert returned the wallet and the flash drive. Hotel Hilaire. Lambert helped Monica into the elevator. At the moment, Monica seemed to be somewhat conscious. Being able to find a warm place on her own, it should be a subconscious behavior, always wanting to stick with Lambert. Lambert frowned. Monica's body seemed to be exceedingly hot. Is this being drugged? That would be a tough one. It was late at night, and it was already good enough for Lambert to be able to send the other party to the hotel. As for sending to the hospital, sorry, he really didn't have that kind of free time. However, looking at Monica's current appearance, she didn't let Lambert send her to the hospital. It was good that Monica seemed to be more understanding. Since it was difficult to do, just let her do it. Early in the morning, a ray of sunlight wakes Lambert up through a gap in the curtains. Getting up and pulling back the curtains to see the rather familiar metropolis, Lambert was finally convinced that he had really traveled to the inverse world. Turning back to Monica's distraught face, Lambert remembers her craziness from last night, and a warm smile appears on his face. As his eyes shifted downward, Monica's face instantly surged with a scarlet-red color. The sun was shining just right, so how could she not do some morning exercises? Despite last night's hard work, Monica still worked hard at her morning exercises. Until like a dead fish lying down on the bed motionless. This is the ghost said. Lambert, Vadratu seems to not be able to see any side effects on you at all. How did you do it? She inquired Lambert with an astonished face, and her hands were drawing circles on Lambert's body in a bird-like manner. As you can see, for powerful men, the word side effect shouldn't have existed in the first place. Lambert said with a snarky look on his face, his body and mind extremely soothed. Monica knew the truth of stopping at the right moment, and seeing that Lambert was unwilling to say more, she didn't ask any more questions. However, Lambert turned to inquire. Monica, are you now working for the company doing things company? Monica was silent for a while before she slowly said, I am indeed working for Company, but it's to help the Human Alliance to spy on the internal information of Company's company. Lambert suddenly realized. In that case, you are the undercover agent that the Human Alliance has inserted into Company. Have you probed any important information? For example, what big moves has Company made recently? According to Lambert's understanding of the inverse world, many big events were triggered by the big moves of the company. In other words, the Human Alliance had actually been in a passive situation, being led by the nose by the company. If he knew the next big moves of Company, then Lambert could deduce the direction of some big events, and thus make preparations to deal with them in advance. The same intelligence, even if the Human Alliance knew about it, it would be difficult to make an effective response plan. And Lambert was different. He was a traveler and was familiar with the plot of the counterworld. Monica completely lost that high and cold demeanor she had when she was in the lab, and she succinctly gave Lambert the answer he wanted. The company is preparing to hold a new Emerald Agent launch event around the world, and it will also hold a large auction in London. So it seems that the Metropolis replica is coming soon. Lambert pondered in his mind. Then remembering what happened last night at the English bar, he asked, why did you go to the English bar last night to meet that fox? Thinking of what Fox did last night, Monica still had a pang of fear even now. If Lambert hadn't suddenly appeared, she wouldn't have dared to imagine what unbearable things would have happened behind her. Fox is one of the heads of a project of the company. I went to the Engluin bar last night to discuss with him about the global new product launch and auction of the Emerald Agent, and I didn't expect him to do something so excessive. In fact, Monica had long known that Fox had some other ideas about herself. But usually when she dealt with Fox, Dr. Z was usually present, so the other party didn't do anything out of the ordinary. But on the contrary, something happened to Dr. Z last night. Whether Fox knew about this news Monica was not sure, but the other party did figure to show his claws. Fox's plot failed to succeed. He will surely give me small shoes in front of the top management of the company. I'm afraid I can't go back to the company to continue to probe the situation, and I also have to report this to the Human Alliance. Monica didn't realize that Lambert had already settled Fox with a single punch last night, but Lambert didn't say anything about it. Because he knew that even if he let Monica go to company to continue to work as an undercover agent, he wouldn't be able to probe more useful values. And it was very likely that she would end up falling into the hands of company. This was because as far as Lambert knew, within the Company Corporation, apart from a limited number of executives, the rest of the people ended up becoming mutants or reformers without exception. Even Violet, the new CEO of Company Corporation, had experienced the smallpox virus experiment. So what are you going to do next? Report back to the Human League. Although Monica had become his woman, Lambert did not intend to bring Monica with him now. Of course he couldn't directly drive Monica away. It was still based on Monica's own wishes. With Lambert's current strength, plus the system in hand, self-preservation should not be a problem. But bringing one more person around would obviously be much more troublesome, and he would not be able to look after her all the time. Monica not only had the appearance of a goddess, but also possessed uncommon wisdom. She certainly understood Lambert's concerns, and thus answered frankly, "Yes, I'm going to pass this information back to the Human Alliance, and the Alliance should be formulating many actions next, which I may participate in." Not waiting for Lambert to say anything, Monica exhaled again and whispered in his ear, "Of course, before that, I think I should be the one to accompany you to the Emerald Agent new product launch and auction site. Lambert, if I'm not wrong, you must be very interested in the new product launch and auction and decided to go, right?" This playful look of Monica's made Lambert's heart feel a lot of emotions. What an abrasive little goblin. "You're right. When does the new product launch and auction of companies start?" "It's today, 10 o'clock in the morning, Broken Mansion Business Center," Lambert said as he got up. "In that case, let's finish breakfast and get ready to go." Monica forced herself to get up with all the aches and pains in her body. She first organized Lambert's clothes for him before she started to organize her own. During this time, Lambert, on the other hand, had a great time and was certainly not idle, causing Monica to rant and rave. Asterisk. Because of the lab matter, Lambert's heart was a bit resentful towards Monica. But after last night's tutelage and whipping, plus this morning's plum blossom, he successfully conquered Monica and made the other party kneel down and call his father. Lambert's resentment naturally disappeared without a trace. In the cab to the Broken Mansion, Monica was already so tired that she fell asleep again. Lambert then remembered that he hadn't had time to fully understand the endless extraction system, and he immediately asked the system in his mind, "System, what functions do you have?" Please ask the host to research on his own. Then do you have a system store for exchanging items? The host's current level is too low to unlock the system store for now. And is there a system space? The host's current level is too low. The system store has not been unlocked for now. Hiss. Lambert immediately had some toothache. He didn't want to ask anymore, because it was better than not asking. However, the system seemed to know that Lambert was depressed at this time, and instead took the initiative to introduce it. Host can check out the personal homepage. I believe you will have a more in-depth understanding. All right, open the personal homepage. Lambert felt that this might be the only comfort the system could bring him at the moment. Host, Lambert. Age, 20. Level, Early Hotion. Skill, Endless Extraction, Active. Props, none. What a simple and straightforward personal page, summarized in just 3 or 2 lines. However, Lambert didn't get ahead of himself as he knew that this was just the beginning. With the arrival and opening of the Metropolis copy, he would surely become powerful in no time. After extracting the Vajra 2 potion within the lab earlier, Lambert's strength level was raised to the Early Hotion stage. And this time, he went to the new product launch and auction held by company to see if he could get his hands on the Emerald Agent again. After he extracted the medicinal effects of the Emerald Agent, would his strength level be able to rise to another level again? As far as Lambert knew, the current strength levels in the inverse world could be roughly categorized into 4: the Hotion level, the innate level, the transcendent level, and the sacred level. Each level was further categorized into early, middle, late, and complete. At this moment, the cab had already gotten onto the London Bridge, and from afar, he could see the triangular tower-shaped building, which was none other than the Broken Mansion. The closer the Broken Mansion got, the denser the traffic became, and the traffic began to become clogged. From this, it could be seen that this new product launch and auction had attracted a lot of attention and even traveled to attend. When the cab came to a stop at the square in front of Broken Mansion, Lambert woke up Monica and got off together. Monica paid the fare consciously, and then took Lambert's arm and walked towards the mansion with a weak footstep. In order to take care of Monica's behavior, Lambert even deliberately slowed down his pace and observed the surrounding with interest. Finally, Lambert's eyes were attracted by a huge electronic display screen on the outer wall of the Broken Mansion. At this moment, the screen was displaying a few big words: Compton Company Recruitment Information. This was followed by a series of preferential treatment and welfare policies, which made people want to join Company immediately after reading it. Lambert gazed deeply at the screen, and the impassioned propaganda of Company Company was heard in his ears. Try this bottle of Emerald Agent and join Company together. Company social recruitment is open. Are you still suffering greatly because of illness? Are you still running around daily because of food and clothing? Are you still worried because of aging? Just join Compassion. I'll solve your problems. CompUnion, one of the world's top biotechnology companies, has the largest number of employees in the world. Whether it's highly educated elite talents or people from all walks of life, we welcome them all. As long as you try this bottle of Emerald Agent, immediately join CompUni. Enjoy all the benefits of active employees. Fatigue, 1 bottle goes down to refresh your mind. Warmth, 2 bottles go down, never fatigue. Aging, 3 bottles go down to live forever. We have the world's best security measures and security team. Tireless, physical strength, always protect the safety of employees and their families. We have the most transparent promotion channels. As long as the Emerald agent to drink more and does not occur rejection reaction, the position only rise not fall. We also have the best employee benefits, free prosthetic limb modification for employees. God does not give you a normal body we give, but also help you to strengthen for free. Leave a message now. You have a chance to get a private customization created by Dr. Z himself. The opportunity is not to be lost again. These middle-of-the-road advertising slogans made Lambert's embarrassment cancer break out from listening to them. In his memory, wasn't this how certain TV advertisements selling dog skin plasters advertised? What made Lambert even more speechless was that there were even a lot of people who, after listening to the advertisement, wailed and rushed inside the building, saying that after he bought the Emerald agent and took it, he would immediately apply for a job at the Compton Company. Lambert swept his gaze compassionately over the crowd and shook his head before he too went inside the building along with the flow of people. An extremely spacious and expansive banquet hall was densely packed with seats. What was even more amazing was that at this time, the banquet hall had already been filled to capacity. The guests were whispering, their gazes looking towards the lectern from time to time. The background theme behind the lectern was precisely the Emerald Agent global launch site. Time passed minute by minute. Finally, at exactly 10 o'clock in the morning, a female leader of Company Corporation walked onto the speech platform. Good morning, gentlemen and ladies. I'm Violet, the CEO of Company Corporation, and I'm very glad that all of you were able to take time out of your busy schedules to come to our Company Corporation's Emerald Agent global launch. In order to thank all of you for your support, our company has specially prepared 100 copies of Emerald Agent, and all of you at the scene will be able to participate in the lucky draw and have the opportunity to experience our latest product first. In addition, after the new product launch, we have an auction in the afternoon, which will also be held at the Broken Mansion, so all of you are welcome to come. It had to be said that Violet's ability to control the scene was very strong, pushing the atmosphere of the entire auction to a peak. Her voice was powerful and her face was always filled with a very confident smile. Lambert had not expected at all that the launch would be a personal speech by Violet, the CEO of Company. He didn't have the heart to listen to what Violet had said, because at the moment, his whole head was a bit confused. One must know that in the original plot of the Reverse World, it was no secret that Violet was the CEO of Company. However, Violet was a very mysterious person, and almost very few people had seen her true colors. But at this moment, she had appeared in the public eye in such a grand manner. Lambert had to wonder if this was Violet's true face. With the current technological level of the Reverse World, a human skin mask could be completely seamless and fake. Moreover, the recruitment advertisement for company that Lambert had seen earlier also seemed a bit unusual. According to his understanding of the inverse world, the Human Alliance and the Company Company should be like water and fire. And London was one of the important strongholds of the Human Alliance. Now that the Compton Company was making such a big fuss in London, the Human Alliance didn't put a stop to it. Then there was only one truth Lambert could deduce. The evil plot of the Compton Company had not yet been exposed to the world. Therefore, on the surface, the Human Alliance and the Compton Company did not have a direct onslaught, and there was no reason to directly sanction Compton. In this way, whether it was the CEO of Company, Violet, who had personally taken on the persona of the godfather of marketing, or Company's highly enticing recruitment information, it was all able to proceed unhindered. The twist should have been after the uninformed masses scrambled for the Emerald Agent and took it. Because by then, the masses that have taken the Emerald Agent will all turn into zombies. The zombie army that appeared on a large scale caused the panic of the other people, and the conspiracy of the Compton Company was gradually known by the whole world. However, by that time, it was already too late. The Human Alliance had to face the zombie army, cyborg army, and mecha army of the Compton Company at the same time. Lambert had already seen through everything, but he didn't want to, nor was he able to change the situation. The new product launch came to an end in a rush of buying and shouting. Fortunately, Lambert actually won the lottery and got the chance to experience the new Emerald Agent first. Originally, he was still thinking that after the conference was over, he would find a random, unlucky person who bought the Emerald Agent and do a good deed, but now it seems that there is no need to do so. Playing with the turquoise glass vial in his hand, Lambert's heart was quite complicated. The surrounding guests who drew the same Emerald Agent as him, despite the excitement in their hearts, they couldn't wait to take the Emerald Agent at the first time. However, due to the instructions of the Compton Company, they did not take it at the first time. Because the Compton Company said that in order to ensure the effectiveness of the medicine, it must be taken in a safe environment. If conditions allowed, it was best to take the Emerald Agent while washing with the medicinal bath. It was only when the medicine was used both internally and externally that its effectiveness could be maximized. Lambert knew that this was only a stopgap measure for Company. Otherwise, if the guests took the Emerald Agent on the spot, their plot would be exposed immediately. The Company also revealed that in the afternoon's auction, it would auction off the new Emerald Agent product. Therefore, many of the people who came to the launch event also wanted to go to the auction to buy more Emerald Agent just in case. When Monica saw Lambert's strange eyes and then looked at the Emerald Agent, she instantly understood what Lambert had in mind. She knew very well that Lambert was going to take the Emerald Agent. With the experience of having taken Vajratu before, Monica did not feel that there was anything wrong with Lambert taking the Emerald Agent again. What's more, since Company had already successfully packaged and marketed the Emerald Agent was bound to have no major side effects. Monica was completely unaware of how much of a disaster the successful listing of the Emerald Agent would bring to the human world. Not to mention Monica, even the Human Alliance would never have imagined it. Lambert found a corner where no one was, tilted his head, and drank the Emerald Agent. With Vajratu at the bottom, his body's ability to withstand it had long since become incomparable. However, his body still reacted, and his body followed the fire as if he had entered the furnace. The system has detected the Emerald Agent medicinal liquid. Do you choose to extract it? Extract. Lambert did not have any hesitation and immediately chose to extract the Emerald Agent. Extraction of Emerald Agent is successful. Genetic enhancement has been completed. His body had long been drenched in sweat, but Lambert couldn't care less about that as he immediately said to the system, "Open the personal page. Host, Lambert. Age, 20. Level, Mid-Hodion. Skill, Endless Extraction, active. Props, none." Lambert's face revealed a smile. His guess was right. Vajratu allowed him to raise one level, and Emerald Agent allowed him to advance again. Although it was only a small realm, who else could not be happy with something that could easily raise his strength like this? Monica on the side glanced down at Lambert. Not knowing what scene she had thought of, a scarlet red immediately surfaced on her face. She said, "Lambert, you're all wet. Why don't we go to the hotel first to rest and change clothes?" The word rest was bitten a little heavy by her. Who knows if this rested proper or not? But Lambert understood everything as soon as he saw Monica's face. Feeling explosive power radiating from his body, he was about to try it out, so he teased, "Monica, can you still fight me in this state?" Monica was embarrassed at his words, but she was also an extremely strong nature, so naturally, she couldn't take Lambert's provocation. Remembering the soundness of her fight with Lambert, Monica grunted in anger. "If you want to know whether you can fight or not, don't you know if you try?" Lambert's fire pranced up. "Yo, provocation brother is afraid of everything, just not afraid of provocation. Just try." After saying that, he picked up Monica and left. Coming out of the hotel, the unbelieving Monica was walking directly holding onto the wall. After checking out at the front desk, Lambert walked up to Monica. "How is it? Can you still walk?" Monica blankly glanced at her and said hatefully, "So what if I can't walk? Will you carry me?" Although the time spent together was not long, Monica had already figured out some of Lambert's character. The man in front of her should not be able to carry herself in this situation, unless she really couldn't even walk. Monica's complaint didn't exchange for any compromise from Lambert, and sure enough, in the next moment, she got Lambert's answer. "You can choose to stay in the hotel and rest, or..." Lambert held out his arm. The meaning was clear, or instead of holding the wall, Monica could hold him. Monica silently passed her hand through Lambert's arm, and another blush flashed across her face. She would never have dreamed before that she would have such a day in the future. On the contrary, the current her heart did not reject such a situation, and even vaguely enjoyed it a little. Is it because the man in front of her is too good, or is she falling too fast? 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Inside another huge banquet hall of the Broken Mansion, the auction house of the company that was about to begin was exactly where it was taking place. Like the previous ballroom during the launch, the venue was larger. What was different was the design of the place, which was somewhat like a stadium. A circle of seats was around the hall, with the seats getting lower the further in you went until the center, where a circular booth was located. There was also a circle of VIP rooms at the very edge of the hall. The time of the auction was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There were still more than 10 minutes before the auction officially started. At this time the venue was full of people, just a few scattered empty seats. When Lambert brought Monica to the venue, he only had to sit in the outermost seats. "Tyler, my father has specially explained to me to make sure I buy the old ancestor and ship it back for a good burial. Or else he will have to skin me. Do you think there will be someone who will rob the old ancestor's remains from us?" Lambert had just sat down not long ago when he heard a chirping voice coming from the side. It was somewhat familiar, not the voice of the person speaking, but the words were actually spoken in Cantonese. He turned his head to look. The speaker was a youth, dressed in an expensive suit, so he thought that he should be a rich second generation. However, when Lambert's gaze shifted to that so-called Tyler, that sense of familiarity grew stronger. Only Tyler's eyebrows were like swords, and there were 2 handfuls of 8-pointed beards growing on his mouth. A bright yellow Taoist robe was draped over his body, and he even stood out from the crowd. Lambert was a bit confused for a moment. Who was Tyler, if not the famous Tyler of Hong Kong Island? He couldn't figure it out even if he thought about it. This is obviously an inverse world. How come Tyler also messed up in it? Could it be that the other party also traveled through? However, Lambert soon figured out that there were so many people in the reverse world, it was impossible for him to have met all of them. The ones he was familiar with were only those few elite squads in the Human Alliance, and the main members of the Company Corporation. And there were many obscure people that he himself did not have the opportunity to get to know. But now it was different. Having already traveled through the inverse world in person, many people he hadn't met before, he might also encounter. Just like Tyler at this moment, and the rich young man next to him. Lambert didn't rush up to climb into the conversation. He chose to wait and see what happened. Tyler seemed to be a little impatient by the youth's noise, and he didn't have the good sense to say, "Randy, if you can shut up, maybe no one will steal your ancestor from you. Otherwise, it might be really hard to say." The rich second generation named Randy seemed to have limited experience and was instantly bluffed by Tyler and did not continue to yell. Instead, he muttered something to the other girl beside him. Even though Randy's voice wasn't loud, the genetically enhanced Lambert still heard some of it. "Sister Shakti, I'm really very thankful that you were able to tell us about this, or else my old ancestor wouldn't have known how long he would have been stranded overseas. I'm graduating soon, and after graduation I'm going back to Hong Kong Island to inherit the family business, and I don't know when I'll come back to London in the future. When you return to China one day, you must remember to come to Hong Kong Island to look for me. At that time, I will definitely treat you well, and all expenses will be on me." Randy muttered a lot of things. Listening to the girl named Shakti rolled her eyes. It could be seen that she was not a fan of Randy. Lambert listened for a long time and finally figured out some of the complexities of the relationship. To put it simply, Randy, a rich young man, knew through Shakti's connections that his ancestor's body was stranded overseas, so he came to buy it back at his father's request, and Tyler was the consultant that Randy had hired. After observing and recognizing, Lambert finally confirms that the pretty girl named Shakti is none other than the famous Shakti in the elite squad of the Human Alliance. As for the corpse of Randy's old ancestor, why it appeared in the auction of company, Lambert didn't clear his thoughts, but he didn't dwell on it too much either. It was worth mentioning that while Lambert was observing Tyler and Shakti, the other party seemed to have sensed something, and their gazes looked back. It had to be said that the two of them still had very sharp senses. Tyler didn't react too much, and just gave a puzzled look before paying no more attention. Shakti, however, clearly showed a very surprised look on her face after seeing Monica by Lambert's side. Monica saw that Lambert's gaze hadn't moved in the same direction, so she followed his gaze. Between the gazes, Monica was first stunned, and then an unnatural look immediately appeared in her eyes. If Lambert was surprised after seeing Tyler and Randy, then Monica was equally so after seeing Shakti. Being from the same Human Alliance, how could the two of them not recognize each other? Lambert had gotten the answer from the eyes of the two. It's just that Shakti probably didn't come over to recognize each other out of some kind of concern. Probably in her opinion, Monica was still undercover. Monica didn't have any concerns. She hesitated for a while, but still nodded politely at Shakti. To a certain extent, Shakti's position within the alliance was a bit higher than Monica. Seeing this, Shakti also returned the nod. From Monica's demeanor, she already understood that the other party should have already finished her undercover mission. Just as several people were staring wide-eyed at each other, the auction also officially started. The one who presided over the auction was not the CEO of Company, Violet herself. Come to think of it, the auction was nothing more than a part of the Company company and was held on a regular basis, so it was naturally impossible for Violet, who was the CEO, to preside over it herself. The Emerald Agent Global launch was different, and was a major feat that affected the course of history in the reverse world. What many people didn't even know was that it was also related to the next series of plans of Company. Violet would personally preside over it, so it was naturally easy to understand. The first thing the auction took out was the Emerald Agent, a batch of 10 bottles of portions, enough to auction off dozens of batches. It was only after not many people eventually called for bids that the auction began to auction off other items. From this point of view, although the Emerald Agent has been listed, can be taken out at the auction, should be a high-end series. In fact, it was true, the Emerald Agent that Company had put out at the auction was the current most advanced batch with the least side effects. Many people could directly break through the limit of human life through this batch of Emerald Agent, and even retain their consciousness. Of course, its price was auctioned off to sky-high prices, very expensive. The reason why Company was doing this was to net those rich families and individuals and finally use them for themselves. The other items in this auction were also all-encompassing, and its purpose was naturally to grab more wealth, to provide ample financial support for the next research and production of the Company company. Because the development and manufacture of the Emerald Agent had indeed annexed a great deal of the Company company's wealth. And the next plan of the Company Corporation involved the competition between two major internal factions. The radical faction advocated the development and manufacturing of cyborg technology and getting a cyborg army, while the conservative faction preferred the research and manufacturing of mechs to improve the single combatant capability. Of course, no matter how the two factions competed, they all had a common goal, which was to build a powerful military empire, as well as to destroy the old humans. Soon, the old ancestor that Randy wanted to buy was carried out by the staff of the auction. It was a corpse. To be exact, it was a corpse dressed in Qing Dynasty clothing. Its body had long been covered with long greenish-gray hair, and the fangs at the corners of its mouth were very eye-catching. There was a yellowish talisman paper affixed to the center of its forehead, covering most of its eyes, nose, and mouth. In order to let the auctioneers on stage see it more clearly, the auction staff kept turning the talisman paper over and over. Tyler frowned slightly at the sight, and Randy, seeing someone else's hand constantly rubbing on his old ancestor's face, was so anxious that he immediately raised his bidding card. Although there were quite a few other auctioneers who were also curious, they didn't place their first bids. On the contrary, there were a few scientists who had the intention to auction this ancient corpse back for display or for research. However, under Randy's strong financial power, those few scientists quickly gave up. After all, it was just a whim, and not to the point of having to have it. After the hammer was set, Randy finally took a long sigh of relief. Just as the auction staff was carrying the body back, the rune paper was rubbed off by someone. Oh! An ear-piercing low roar came out from the corpse's throat, and then it slapped its hands, and the two staff members were slapped 4 or 5 meters away, landing on the ground alive or dead. It was only then that Lambert realized that this was not a corpse. It was clearly a proper Oriental zombie. Zombie jumped 2 or 3 meters high. A jump is 4 or 5 meters away, in the auction site as fast as flying. Caused a scene of chaos screams, almost to the roof of the building to be overturned. Tyler had long been on the defensive, and when he saw that things were really going in the direction he feared, he immediately pulled out a brand new piece of yellow paper from his pocket. Taking advantage of the zombie flying this way, he stepped on the back of the fat man in front of him and rose up into the air, pulling the zombie's heel with a quick eye in the air. Boom! Because of inertia, the zombie dragged Tyler with him for several meters, and eventually both fell to the ground. Fortunately, with the zombie as a back, Tyler did not fall and get hurt, but he was also dropped to the ground. Seeing that the zombie is going to get up again, Tyler did not bother to rub his knees, and immediately put the talisman on the zombie's forehead. The originally ferocious zombie suddenly quieted down. Only then did Tyler get up with considerable difficulty, holding his waist. "Is the old ancestor all right?" Randy then asked as he ran over in a fiery hurry. Tyler immediately said with a black face, "Don't worry, your old ancestor is fine. It's me who's not fine." Randy smiled sarcastically, and only then did he notice that Tyler was grimacing at the moment and seemed to be badly injured. "Tyler, please, say a number. When we get back, I'll ask Dad to raise your money." Tyler shook his head without saying anything. At this time, the visitors who were originally screaming to run out of the auction house gradually settled down when they saw that the matter had been resolved. There were even quite a few reporters who immediately disliked the camera almost to Tyler's face, clicking and snapping. Some media practitioners who couldn't squeeze in even surrounded the zombie that was subdued by Tyler and took pictures. The reporters were chattering and asking questions, but Tyler didn't know much English, so he didn't say anything. Randy did know English, but his mind was on his ancestor, so he didn't have the time to be interviewed. "Excuse me, please move over." Randy's mouth was already dry from just these words. He immediately asked the auctioneer to handle the handover formalities, ready to take the old ancestor on a prepared private jet directly back to China. The auction was nearing its end, and most of the people were a bit stunned and not in the mood to stay and participate in the bidding. Shakti was ready to leave with both Tyler. She should have accompanied Tyler specially. Before leaving, she glanced at Monica and Lambert, if at all. Monica hesitated for a moment, and then tugged on Lambert's coat. Lambert received Monica's glance, then glanced at the direction Tyler and the others had left, and understood. Let's go check it out too," he said to Monica with a smile. Monica sniffed, and a sweet smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Lambert pondered in his mind that there was originally a 1,000-year corpse king in the Metropolis copy. He didn't expect that after coming to the inverse world, he would find out that Randy's old ancestor had also become a zombie. I wonder if there is any connection between the two? Is the old zombie ancestor artificially created by Company? And what is the purpose of bringing it to auction? And Tyler, I'm afraid his strength is not inferior to his own. I don't know if they can safely transport the zombie ancestor back to Hong Kong Island. With these questions, Lambert chased after Tyler in the direction he left in no hurry. On the square in front of the broken mansion, Lambert and Monica finally caught up with Tyler's trio. Next to them was an old zombie ancestor who was statuesque and motionless. They were waiting for a car to head to the airport. The area around the broken mansion was crowded with incoming and outgoing cabs at this point. But with Randy's worth, it was obvious that he wouldn't go for a cab. Besides, it was inappropriate to take a cab with his old ancestor in tow. He immediately contacted the car rental company and rented a luxury stretch car right after he had just photographed his old ancestor. The reason, of course, was to allow the old ancestor to sit comfortably. Team Chun, what a coincidence, you're escorting an international friend. Monica opened her mouth to exchange pleasantries as soon as she saw Shakti. Because in her opinion, Lambert was not familiar with Shakti's people, it was natural for her to introduce the two sides to each other. Sure enough, Shakti first glanced at Monica before shifting her gaze to Lambert. That meant clearly, can you introduce this gentleman first? So that I can decide what I can and can't say in the rest of the chat. Monica would take that and took Lambert's hand, then solemnly introduced, this is Mr. Lambert, also my boyfriend. After saying that, she glanced at Lambert and saw that Lambert's face didn't show any displeasure. Then she secretly let out a sigh of relief. She finally had a name for herself, even if it was only one she had acquired shamelessly. Monica pointed to Shakti again and turned to Lambert and began to introduce him. This is Shakti, a member of the Human Alliance, and my colleague. Even though Lambert didn't need Monica's introduction and had already been familiar with Shakti for a long time, he still symbolically extended his hand towards Shakti and said, Lambert, nice to meet you. Looking at his serious demeanor, Shakti couldn't help but burst out laughing. What a funny guy. However, she didn't squirm, and similarly reached out her hand and shook it with Lambert. Shakti, you can also call me Shakti. Monica sniffed, and her grip on Lambert's waist subconsciously tightened. One should know that Shakti was usually a very serious person. Lambert was able to make her take the initiative to say that she could call her Shakti, so it could be seen how good of an impression Shakti had of Lambert in her heart. Yo, is this jealousy? Lambert pretended to look at Monica with a confused face, as if inquiring, what are you pinching me for? Monica is shy and anxious, with a grumpy face. Seeing this, Shakti revealed a seemingly smiling expression. If she remembered correctly, Monica's walking posture before seemed very strange. This was the good professionalism of a good agent, being able to recall the unusual behavior of the people around her at any time. Shakti hadn't thought anything of it before, but now, in retrospect, it was like she suddenly understood something. Tyler had been coldly watching the exchange between several people. Rather, it was Randy who was a bit sullen at this time, and he interjected, hello Brother Wong, my name is Randy, you can call me Randy. Randy's posture was very low. On one hand, it was to give Shakti face. On the other hand, he saw that Lambert's temperament was very calm and introverted. For a moment, he couldn't figure out Lambert's true age, so he simply called out to Brother Wong. Lambert didn't poke at it and reached out to shake the other party's hand ceremoniously. In terms of physical age, Lambert really wasn't older than Randy, but with 2 lives, he was mentally old enough to be Randy's father. This is our most famous Tyler from Hong Kong Island. Randy did not leave Tyler behind after introducing himself. At this point, Tyler couldn't say hello even if he didn't want to, because Lambert had already extended his hand. My name is Tyler, nice to meet you. For some reason, Tyler felt that the young man in front of him seemed to be able to see through everything about himself, whereas he himself couldn't see much from his body. Of course, that middle Hoteon strength level could still be seen one way or another. To have such strength at such a young age, it could be seen that this young man called Lambert was really gifted. Tyler could not have thought that the reason why Lambert gave him the illusion of being able to see through everything was because he knew enough about his life. Of course, what Tyler could not have imagined was that Lambert was a person who traveled through the world with a hang-up, and his strength had even reached the present level within these 2 days. Shakti originally did not intend to introduce Tyler and Randy to Lambert, but she couldn't resist Randy's self-introduction. After a bit of conversation, Randy's rented luxury limo finally arrived. Randy started by putting the back seat down, and then old grandpa moved into the back seat. In order to make the ride more comfortable for the old grandpa, he directly put the old grandpa down on the seat as well. After doing all this, he observed the old ancestor and saw that the other party did not have any abnormalities before he carefully closed the backseat car door. Seeing this scene, Tyler shook his head rather helplessly. This was a blind man lighting a lamp, a waste of wax. It's not like his old ancestor would understand this, and he didn't know what this kid was fooling around with. After the 2 of them got into the car, Randy gave a parting greeting to a few people and instructed the driver to drive towards the airport. Seeing Tyler and Randy leave, Lambert had a vague feeling in his heart that their journey would not be peaceful. He murmured softly, I hope they can arrive safely. The voice was small, but both Shakti and Monica heard it. Monica did not feel anything because she knew what Lambert was worried about and trusted Lambert's judgment. However, apart from Lambert, Monica felt that the others' well-being had nothing to do with her, so she didn't bother to ask anything more. Shakti found this statement a bit puzzling, as she didn't know Lambert well and didn't know why Lambert would worry about a person she met in passing. Or was it that the other party sensed that the person auctioning off the zombies actually had some sort of ulterior motive? Unable to think of a reason, Shakti didn't think any further and turned to Monica. I'm going to head back to the Alliance branch now. What about you? As she spoke, her gaze kept sweeping back and forth between both Lambert and Monica. The meaning was rather obvious, asking Monica if she wanted to get bored with Lambert for a few more days, or go back with herself right away. Shakti didn't have the idea of recruiting Lambert for the Alliance right now, because she simply didn't know Lambert's strengths, nor did she know how fierce the other party was. Monica hesitated, but finally said goodbye to Lambert with a reluctant gaze. Witnessing the cab leaving again, Lambert exhaled a long breath of turbid air. On the surface, a person is free, but his heart is actually more or less empty. After all, he was alone in the opposite world, just like a rootless weed. Leaving aside the rest for the moment, because even the money for food and shelter was now insufficient for him. As for asking Monica for money, it was impossible for a man to directly ask a woman for money, not in this lifetime. Unless she can't help but favor giving it herself. Then, if you want to get by, you have to learn how to buy $0 first. Asterisk. A hidden branch of the Company Corporation in London. In the conference hall, a group of Company executives, led by Violet, were gathered here. A heated argument was unfolding. The auction and pre-sale of this Emerald Agent has already allowed us to recoup a large amount of money. I suggest that we can proceed with the upgrading and production of cyborg technology next, and make sure to stockpile a powerful army of cyborgs before the global zombie wave breaks out in preparation for a rainy day. After all, after the outbreak of the zombie wave, all of our schemes will be exposed to the world, and the Human Alliance is not one of those pathetic people who sit back and wait for death. They will surely fight back frantically. But this is good. Let Gideos stock up on more replacement equipment and weapons and sell them to the Human Alliance, so we will gain another huge profit. The one who spoke was a rather handsome young man, whom others called Extreme Swordsman Builder, as he had exquisite sword skills and almost no one could engage him in melee combat. Bildar was also one of the backbones of Company's strongest advocates of cyborg technology research and development, also known as the so-called radicals, so crazy that he had bred a creature called the Emerald Parasite in his body, so technically, he was no longer a real human being. Biddle consumes huge quantities of food daily, so he likes to overeat, and he's basically either looking for food or on his way to it. Within the upper echelons of Company, there were not a few people like Biddle who fancied themselves as new humans and hated and discriminated against the old ones. Biddle, I agree with the 2 points you said afterward, but I have a different opinion on the one stated before. As we all know, the Human League has huge masses around the world, so we should do the opposite and take the boutique route. I think it's best to improve the single combatant ability, such as upgrading the mech technology and putting it into production. Previously, we already have perfect first-generation mech technology. As long as the funds are available, we can immediately upgrade to the second-generation mech model. Once we expand the production, our combat power will increase exponentially. In replacing the first-generation mechs, we can also sell them to the Human Alliance through Gideos, which will also bring us huge profits. What do you all think? The first person to jump out against Bildad was a woman named Medusa Callion. She was one of the representatives of the conservative faction and strongly pushed for an increase in the combat capability of a single soldier, so naturally, she was in favor of the upgrading of the mecha technology. Although Callion was a representative of the conservative faction, her behavioral style was not conservative at all, and she could be considered the most evil existence within the Company. This was because she liked to capture civilians and rebels all over the globe, and then sadistically kill each other in an extremely brutal manner and broadcast it live around the globe. She is equally ruthless enough to herself that her body has been cyborg modified into a half-human, half-snake creature and a so-called neo-human. There had been a long history of fighting between the radicals and conservatives within the Company Corporation, and often they all fought at the drop of a hat. Like the conference room at this moment, it had long since been fired up into a frenzy. The buzzing sound made Violet, who was sitting at the first place, frown. The black magician Kina who stood beside her stared and shouted, "All shut up." In an instant, the entire conference room instantly fell into an eerie silence. From this, it could be seen that Kina still had 2 skills. With a black robe wrapping her entire body, she merely stood there, radiating an endless coldness that made people look at her with fear. Kina was Violet's younger sister, who was weak and sickly since childhood, and died at the age of 17 due to illness, and it was Violet who utilized the genes of the smallpox virus in her own body, as well as the Emerald Agent to bring her back to life. After that, she possessed the most powerful black magic power in the world and always guarded next to Violet. Seeing that no one was arguing anymore, Violet then began to make a speech. It was actually the distribution of the benefits gained from this Emerald Agent global launch and auction. I know that you guys always think that your claim is the most correct, but what I want to say is that there is no progress without competition. And practice is the only standard for testing truth. Without practice, there is no right to speak. Although the radicals and conservatives were a bit unwilling, they could only accept in silence. If it weren't for the existence of the other party, they would have gotten at least 50% of the research funds, and both sides thought so in their hearts. Therefore, it was always difficult for the radicals and conservatives to let go of each other, and both held a fire in their hearts. Violet naturally knew the small minds of both of them, but did not poke holes in them. In addition to that, after we harvest the wealth and manpower of the rich class, we're going to start implementing the old human elimination program. From this Emerald Agent launch, you should understand that those poor bastards among the old humans are worthless to us. And for the old humans that cannot bring us any revenue, we should eliminate them in a timely manner so as not to waste valuable resources. In the auction, we sold the highest level of Emerald Agent, and in the pre-sale, we sold the next level of Emerald Agent. For those poor bastards who can't bring in revenue for us, we have to eliminate them at the lowest possible cost, and preferably generate income for us along the way. Saying this, Violet revealed a wry smile, and then added, "After overnight research by our analysis team, I have finally formulated a plan, the details of which are as follows. Firstly, drop the pathogen in areas with dense populations such as the metropolis, as a way to accelerate the elimination of the old humans. Of course, in the process of eliminating the old humans, we may not necessarily have to do it ourselves. We can pretend to be someone else, such as the Human Alliance. Secondly, in the name of Gideos, continue to sell a large number of iterative weapons to the Human Alliance, always retaining the latest technology and weaponry, to ensure that the Human Alliance has enough weapons to eliminate the old humans for us, while not causing us any major problems. Lastly, continue to secretly set up laboratories and virus depots as well as arsenals around the globe to ensure that we have enough strategic stockpiles in case of emergencies." After saying this, Violet's gaze sternly swept a circle of all the executives before she quietly said, "Do you understand?" Although the voice was not loud, it made the hearts of all the people present tremble, and they answered coyly, "I understand." Although they were also the so-called top management of the company, they were not on the same level as Violet. It was important to know that Violet was a ruthless character who, by virtue of being a mere woman, had eventually turned the tables through an iron hand in the face of extreme suppression and isolation by the family. Those elders in the family who had been madly targeting her, at this moment, the grass in their graves are not sure how many feet high already. This was also the biggest reason why Violet was able to take the helm of the huge ship company at such a young age, and was even able to speak her mind within the company. "Since we've all heard it, let's adjourn the meeting." Violet waved her hand and got up to walk towards the outside of the conference room. It was only until the sound of high footsteps was far away that the group of executives heavily exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, then got up in twos and threes to leave the conference room. In Violet's room, in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, a man was gazing into the distance with his brows locked. Night had already fallen outside the window at this time, but the colorful lights illuminated the outline of Metropolis clearly. Click! The door was pushed open from the outside, and Violet walked into the room with Kina. Seeing that the man had woken up, but was staring intently out of the window, wondering what he was thinking about. Violet was in a trance for a moment, and the figure of the man in front of her looked great and bright in her eyes. "Navila, what are your next plans? Do you want to stay and create something great with me?" She spoke softly to the man in front of her, not at all as domineering as she had been earlier in the meeting. The man called Navila turned back, his gaze calmly gazing at Violet, his tone indifferent. "You should know that I will not and cannot work with you. Our beliefs and philosophies are different." Violet sniffed, a flash of regret, and regret flashed through her heart, but her face did not show it at all. For a moment, she had thought that she had found the person of her destiny, but the other party's words clearly shattered her illusions. So her loosened heart became hardened once again, and she was unwilling to let anyone see through her disguise again. Ever since she was rescued by Navila from the magic capital, Violet had looked at Navila differently. She didn't know what kind of mentality it was, just that every time she spoke with Navila, she would subconsciously place herself in a very low position, and even had a certain kind of hidden expectation. Despite being repeatedly alienated by Navila, she still didn't give up. Until now, Navila's originally injured body had completely recovered, and Violet could feel that the other party had the heart to leave. Sure enough, Navila's words in the next moment verified her suspicions. "I'm ready to leave. Thank you for taking good care of me all this time." Admittedly, Navila had saved Violet, but she had also contracted the smallpox virus as a result, and in the end, in turn, had been saved by Violet. In theory, they should be considered to have cleared the air by just seeing each other, but the untouched Violet's heart was still undying. "You're not the same as the old humans now. They'll treat you as a monster. Even so, do you still insist on going back?" She was still desperately trying to get Navila to back off with some facts. Navila looked at his lean body, well-proportioned, standard bodybuilding type, but that was only under normal circumstances. In his berserk state, his whole body muscles would immediately burst the clothes on his body, and then reveal his giant-like green body. This was the result of Navila's infection with the smallpox virus, which was what Violet called a monster in the eyes of ordinary people. However, Navila didn't think so, at least in his berserk state. He still had human reasoning. He laughed lightly, then said to Violet extremely seriously, "I don't agree with you. Instead, I think that I can become a hero who will guard the human race in the future, therefore they won't treat me as a monster. I have to go back." Navila had a confident face, strong as Violet was. It was difficult to compete with her for a while. She pursed her lips and finally couldn't help but lose it. "If we meet again in the future, will we still be friends?" The reason why she had such a question was because long before she was injured, Navila had already sensed some of the conspiracies of Compne. And during the time that Navila had been convalescing at Compne, Violet hadn't avoided him in many things, which had led to the fact that Navila might have already known more of Compne's insider information. Violet had originally confidently thought that she would be able to make Navila willingly stay, but it turned out that she had thought wrong. Even so far, she did not want to use coercion to make Navila stay, which led to the scene in front of her. Navila was silent for a long time this time before saying with a complicated face, "Maybe." On the surface, he was stone-hearted because of his strong beliefs and ideas, but people would have feelings and desires. How could he not feel Violet's kindness to him? It was just that he had reasons why he had to leave. "Kina, go and bring over our newly developed reverse light blade." Knowing that Navila's decision to go was finalized, Violet did not hold back any longer and turned to Kina and ordered her. Kina, a qualified guardian and a good sister to Violet, went to get it without any hesitation. "Wait, I had given me a pair of gloves. In exchange, I'll also give you a blade of reverse light. I hope you'll take it." Violet called out to Navila, who was about to walk out the door, her tone ghostly, as if remembering some past events. Navila stopped in his tracks. He was able to refuse other good intentions, but for a sharp blade that could improve his strength, he would not refuse it. Who made himself a straight man of steel? Wouldn't it make sense not to understand the hidden meaning? Navila knew that the blade of reverse light was the newest alloy weapon developed by Compne, and the entire company only had one so far, which was in Violet's hands. The gloves that he had given to Violet at the beginning were an extremely ordinary pair of objects, mainly used to cover his smallpox-infected hands, and although they had been transformed into a weapon by Terrific, they were not as good as the blade of reverse light after all. So no matter what, this wave was bloody profitable for himself. Navila thought silently in her heart. At the same time, on this night, many people who had attended the new product launch of the Compne company, after returning to their homes or hotels, had already begun to take the Emerald Agent with impatience. What they didn't know was that something terrible was about to come. While the night was getting deeper and deeper, the roars within the metropolis were getting louder and louder, and the entire city looked like a monster that was about to wake up. On this night, the people of the entire city stayed up all night with fear in their hearts. Inside the branch where the Human Alliance London was located, this night was also brightly lit, with countless staff members working overtime to sort out and analyze the information they had collected. There was a sense of urgency in everyone's hearts that a mountain rain was coming down. On the other side, Tyler and Randy had already arrived at a height of 10,000 miles with the old zombie ancestor. Because of the traffic jam, by the time they arrived at the airport, it was already dark. Randy was so eager to escort the old ancestor home that he didn't care about night and day, and applied for takeoff overnight. The airplane had already flown for most of an hour and crossed over the Gojo region. From the airplane at a height of 10,000 miles, the outline of a fireball could still be faintly seen in the distance through the window. The golden sunlight shone through the clouds, and the refracted light colored the plane scarlet. Without warning, the airplane began to shake violently. The airplane's fuel tank is leaking, and the current amount of fuel is no longer enough to support the airplane to continue flying smoothly. The captain inside the airplane's cockpit issued an urgent reminder. "You have 10 minutes to prepare for a parachute jump. After 10 minutes the airplane will crash." After the reminder, the captain threw 2 parachute packs to Tyler and the two of them, then nimbly put the last parachute behind his back, opened the door with a greeting, and jumped out. Randy was a little confused for a moment, looking at Tyler and then at his oldest ancestor, sweating with impatience. "Tyler, what to do now? We only have 2 parachutes now." Tyler didn't panic. He had an idea in his mind with a twinkle in his eye. He quickly put one of the parachutes on the old zombie ancestor, and then brought him to the airplane hatch. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell. Tyler's hands were sore from ringing the bells, but the zombie old ancestor kept jumping in place in front of the hatch, refusing to jump out of the airplane's range. Randy looked dumbfounded. May not be zombies are also afraid of skydiving, ah? Seeing that the 10 minutes had already gone halfway, Tyler raised his foot and kicked towards the old zombie ancestor. Randy was so scared that his heart slowed down for a beat, and hurriedly bowed and saluted. I have no choice but to do it. Don't blame the old ancestor. Tyler again quickly put the last parachute bag over himself and Randy. Then while Randy wasn't paying attention, he jumped towards the hatch without hesitation. The feeling of the rapid fall and the whistling sound caused Randy to unconsciously let out a series of screams as his mind went blank. Asterisk. After repeated practice, Lambert finally grasped the essence of $0 buy. Through friendly exchanges with other $0 buy players, he learns that as long as the items purchased do not exceed 1,000 gulls, they can be bought for $0. This is not a crime under the law, and one of the members of the Federation declared that this is another effective way to redistribute wealth in the society. After this incident, Lambert finally knows why these gulls American family, so rampant $0 purchase, dare to have the support from the spirit of the legislator. At this time he had taken a big bag of things to stay in a hotel. Things are $0 purchase. Staying at the hotel is that he got an AK rifle by hand, and then with a handbag and a gun in one hand, he entered the hotel in a dignified manner.